Ciao, this is Oblivious Elsk, coming from Italy, with Science or Not. I haven't made a video in a short while, but that's because vacationing takes a lot out of you. Without further ado, let us start the science. Recently something called an anti-laser has been invented, which by the name you can assume what it does. It absorbs light rather than emits it.
Well, Oblivious Elsk, doesn't everything do that?
Well, yes, very weird person, but everything also reflects light as well. Some things just more than others. But there's something a bit different about this anti-laser. It absorbs 99% of the light it is exposed to. But before we get into that, let me explain how a normal laser works. In normal lasers, you pass light or electricity through what is called a gain medium, in which electrons are bumped to higher energy states in orbits they make around the nucleus. Because they are now at higher energy, they want to jump back down again. So they do, and when they do, they release what is called a photon, otherwise known as light, which in this case is a whole bunch of light all at the same wavelength. There's a lot of physics behind this that I can't explain within a few minutes, so let's just move on and you can believe me. The photons that come out of this are bounced back and forth in the chamber until they make a coherent beam of light, at which time they come out of your little handheld laser and create a little red dot on the wall. I've always wanted one of those. However, on the other end of the proverbial spectrum, which is a bit specific in its capacity to absorb light, and so instead of the material we're shining light at in question, what we do is we mess with the light. In other words, make the light one wavelength. So what we do is we take this light from a laser and we split it in two. One we leave the same and the other we rotate 180 degrees so it is the exact opposite as the original. This is called destructive interference between the two phases of the same wavelength. When destructive interference happens whether with light waves or sound waves, all of the waves get cancelled out. Sounds simple, yes? Well, it is. But there's a trick to it. You can't just take one specific wavelength and clash it with one specific other. That's ridiculous, like microscience. I don't know what you call it. It's tiny, really hard, really fast stuff to do. You can't do that. So the trick is to get one wave with the other for long enough that they cancel each other out. This anti-laser is actually able to do that and manages to cancel out 99% of the light. Also, as a side note, by messing with the interference pattern of the separated wavelengths, we can actually tune how much light is absorbed into the medium. You'd think I'd know sign language by how much I'm moving my hands. But now let's go to the trivial stuff. I got all excited when I saw this article thinking, an anti-laser? Awesome! It'd be like if you had a flashlight that instead of shining it on a wall and you get a little speck of light, you get a speck of darkness. Imagine the stealth gear that you could come up with that kind of stuff. But sadly, no. The specifics of this are so particular, what with making the polarized light, splitting it, and then switching it one to interfere with the other, that you couldn't really use it for something more than signals to be used in switches or computer chips that use light rather than electricity. However, light travels much faster than electricity through certain mediums. So, what if we had computer chips that use light? It would make your computer quite a bit faster.
New subject.
What might be the smallest dinosaur ever discovered has been found in East Sussex in the UK. It was about 16 inches long, or since we're in Italy, 40 centimeters. Since one of the only countries that does this inches stuff is America, and lived in the Cretaceous period. This specific fossil is to a fully grown little feathered thing that really doesn't look like a dinosaur at all, but rather like a bird. Also, it is a Maniraptor, which sounds kind of like a raptor, as in velociraptor, but it's not quite the same thing. However, it is within the theropod group, which is a group that eventually evolved into the birds, and actually went through T-Rex on the way. So now we have all this cool information on this tiny dinosaur, but all that was found from one measly little neck vertebrae. I'd like to know how you get all that information from one tiny bone. I understand the fully grown bit, because the vertebra doesn't have what's called a neurocentral suture, which is a rough, open line of bone that doesn't close until the dinosaur is an adult. But the length of the dinosaur, and hence the estimated size, is a little more of a shot in the dark. One way of guessing the dinosaur's size is more art than science, really, because you make a digital model of what the dinosaur's neck might be and fit it into a generic Maniraptoran. A better way, but still completely rough, is to use ratios of neck to body measurements of known similar dinosaurs to figure it out. However, both of these strategies estimated that this dinosaur would be about 13 to 16 inches long, so about 33 to 40 centimeters, which still beats the current record holder, which was another bird-like dinosaur from the Jurassic, presuming this range is accurate.
New subject.
There's been some crazy research. Okay, maybe not research. More like silly observations, which have been made by a cage diving operator in South Australia that has found that sharks are fans of rock and roll music, specifically the rock and roll of the band AC/DC. Rather than using turned fish bits, which is becoming increasingly controversial and gets an aggressive response from the sharks, a common strategy to lure sharks is to play music, since they are really sensitive to vibrations, and can find them from a really, really long way away. Come to think of it, turned fish bits isn't a bad name for a band. So different kinds of music are tried, but if the Sharks don't like it, it's back to AC/DC. The best part about that, though, is that one of their favorite songs is called If You Want Blood. They also like the song You Shook Me All Night Long, which also gives a bit of good symmetry. But I think the song Shake a Leg would be a little bit better. But who am I to complain about a Shark's taste in music? And actually it has nothing to do with the titles or lyrics. And the sound can really be anything that is high decibel and low frequency, which passes long distances quite easily. So AC/DC works perfectly for that. I'm only going to be reviewing these 3 stories today because it is hot in Italy. If you have any interesting science you'd like me to share, comment on the video or make a video response. I've included all the stories I've talked about today in the drop-down bar below, including another story that I didn't talk about, which is a video of lightning hitting an airplane. Hit the like button if you liked it, and hit the subscribe button if you would like to see more. Until next time, which will probably also be in Italy, ciao!